You know that specific nightmare? The
Yeah.
one where you're on stage, the spotlight hits you, you open your mouth to deliver this like perfect soliloquy. Just
Yeah.
nothing comes out.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe something does come out, but it sounds like a broken GPS.
The recalculating,
Oh, yeah.
nightmare. Yeah, I know it well.
But I'm talking about that feeling in real life.
Mm.
You know, you've done the work, you've studied all the grammar, you've memorized these huge vocabulary lists, you've maybe even crushed the exams. On paper, you are fluent.
Right. Textbook for it.
Textbook fluent.
Yeah.
But then you're in a meeting or at a loud bar or maybe just trying to return a defective toaster and you freeze. You revert to this like robotic, hello, how are you? I am fine setting.
It's the uncanny valley of language learning, isn't it? You know, just enough to be dangerous, but not quite enough to be human.
That is the perfect way to put it. The gap between textbook fluency and real-world connection.
Yeah.
And that gap is, well, it's exactly where we are living today.
Mm.
We are doing a deep dive into a really, really comprehensive breakdown of advanced English listening and conversation strategies. And it's all based on the English Pod community material.
And I'm excited about this because this source material, it isn't a dictionary. It's not, you know, a list of idioms to memorize. It's essentially a treatise on the psychology of communication.
The psychology.
Yeah, it argues that real-life stories and emotional intelligence, they act as the ultimate data compression for learning.
Data compression. What do you mean by that?
Well, think about it. If I give you a list of, say, 50 random words, you'll probably forget them in an hour.
Oh, for sure. Less than an hour.
Right. But if I tell you a gripping story about the time I accidentally, you know, insulted a CEO in an elevator, you'll remember the specific vocabulary from that story forever.
Right, because it's tied to an emotion, to a narrative.
Exactly. So we aren't just looking at what words to say today. We're looking at tone, register, emotion, and the subtle art of not panicking when things go wrong.
The art of not panicking. Okay, that resonates. Because let's be honest, half of looking fluent is just pretending you aren't freaking out, right?
It really is. I mean, it's about confidence or at least the projection of it. And today we're going to cover some really specific protocols for that.
Okay.
We're going to look at what I call the panic protocol, how to sound professional when you're, you know, internally melting down.
Right.
We'll also get into the chameleon effect, this idea of switching your personality based on who's in the room.
We've got some really modern stuff to cover too, I saw. From the lexicon of digital nomads to like the anxiety of cryptocurrency. It's a massive landscape.
It is.
But I think the best place to start is with that moment of just sheer terror.
The panic moment.
The panic moment. Okay, let's unpack this. The source material describes this scenario that I think everyone listening has probably felt. You're late to a meeting or maybe you get a text and the heart rate just spikes.
Right. The specific case study here is the urgent text. You're busy, maybe you're in another meeting, or maybe you're just not in the right headspace.
Yeah.
And a colleague texts you asking for immediate input on a project. Where are those numbers? What's the status on the Q3 report? You have maybe 5 minutes, maybe less, to reply before it starts getting awkward.
And the brain just freezes. The blinking cursor on the screen is just mocking you.
It does. It absolutely does. And the source highlights that the wrong move here, which is what most learners, and honestly a lot of native speakers do, is to try and over-explain.
Oh, yeah. The novel.
Yeah. They start typing this whole essay about why they can't answer right now. Oh, sorry, I'm just in this other thing and I'll get to it. Or worse, they just freeze up and don't answer at all because they don't have the perfect answer yet.
And silence is just. It's the enemy in that situation.
Silence is ambiguity. And in a professional setting, ambiguity reads as incompetence. It's that simple.
So what's the right move? What's the magic phrase that stops the bleeding?
Okay. The phrase is super simple. I'll get back to you on that. Or a slight variation. Let me quickly check and get back to you.
Okay. I want to push back on this for a second. I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah.
To me, that sometimes sounds like a brush off. You know? Like when a politician doesn't want to answer a question on the news, I'll get back to you. Doesn't that risk making you look like you don't actually know your stuff?
That is a very, very valid fear. And you're right. If you use it for everything, yes, you absolutely look unprepared. But here is the psychological nuance the source points out.
Okay.
If you say, I don't know, you lose status, you're admitting a deficit. If you say nothing, you look unreliable. But I'll get back to you on that. Implies that you have the answer, or at least you have the capacity to get it. You just need to execute the process.
So it frames it as a logistical delay, not a knowledge gap.
Precisely. You've hit the nail on the head. It transforms a lack of immediate knowledge into a process of verification. It's active, not passive. And to address your concern about the brush off, the key is the follow-up. You can add a time box. I'll get back to you on that by EOD. End of day.
Right, by EOD.
Now it's not a dodge, it's a project management task. You've just created a deadline and a deliverable.
I'll get back to you by 3 p.m. That sounds like a boss. That sounds like someone who is in control.
Exactly. And the casual variant mentioned, let me quickly check, is for lower stakes things. That's the functional English aspect we'll talk about. It's not poetic, it's not Shakespeare, but it keeps the workflow moving. It stops the panic spiral because you have a script. You don't have to invent a reason, you just have to deploy the protocol.
Speaking of panic spirals, the source material shared this story that gave me secondhand anxiety just reading it. The missing presentation nightmare.
Oh, this is a classic, a true classic. The narrator has spent hours, maybe days on a presentation, and right before the meeting, like minutes before it's gone.
Oh, no.
Deleted, corrupted. The laptop screen is just a blue void of death.
I would scream. I would legitimately scream and then maybe crawl under a desk and cry.
I think most people would. The fight or flight response just kicks in immediately. But the source analyzes a specific phrase used in this moment, that is. It's arguably genius.
The narrator calls a colleague and says, I'm in a bit of a panic right now. Can you help me figure this out quickly?
I'm in a bit of a panic right now.
Yes.
Okay, again, playing devil's advocate here. Isn't that risky? Admitting you're panicking in a professional setting. We're always told, never let them see you sweat. Doesn't this violate the whole fake it till you make it rule?
You would think so, but let's look at the nuance of the modifiers. They didn't scream. They didn't say, everything is ruined, I'm completely incompetent.
Right.
They said, I'm in a bit of a panic. That little word, bit, it downplays it. It admits the emotion without letting the emotion drive the bus. It's what psychologists call labeling. By naming the emotion, you actually reduce its power over you. So you're naming the elephant in the room before it has a chance to trample you?
Precisely. And notice the second part of the sentence. Can you help me figure this out quickly? It immediately pivots from the emotion to a partnership. It's not a demand, fix this, and it's not a helpless cry, save me. It's an invitation to collaborate on a solution. It creates a team dynamic instantly.
That is really interesting. So it turns the colleague into an ally rather than just a spectator to your meltdown.
Exactly. It's vulnerability used as a strategic tool. If you just pretend everything is fine while you're hyperventilating, people sense that dissonance. They get uneasy. By saying, I'm in a bit of a panic, help me solve this, you align your internal state with your external request. It's actually highly trustworthy behavior.
I love that distinction. Vulnerability is strategy. Okay, let's dial down the stakes a little bit. Not every panic is a career-ending presentation failure.
Thankfully.
Sometimes it's just social awkwardness. The source talked about the grocery store confrontation.
Right. This is low stakes financially, but it can be really high stakes socially for a lot of people, especially if you're speaking in a second language. Totally. You're at the store, you check your receipt, and you realize they charged you too much. Maybe it's just $2.
And for a non-native speaker, or honestly even a native speaker who just hates conflict, this is the moment where you just go, it's only $2. The anxiety of correcting the cashier isn't worth the money.
Exactly, because we have this deep-seated fear of sounding accusatory. We fear saying, you made a mistake, or you were trying to cheat me.
So what's the strategy here? How do we get our $2 back without feeling like a Karen?
The phrase the source recommends is beautiful in its simplicity. Can you double-check the price for me?
Can you double-check the price for me?
Notice what isn't there. There's no accusation. There is no you. Well, can you? But it's not, you made a mistake.
Right. It's not pointing a finger.
No, it's not, this is wrong. It's a request for a process. Double-check.
It's so soft. It's so gentle.
It is. It removes the blame. You aren't saying you are wrong. You are asking for a verification. It frames the entire interaction as a service request rather than a correction. It's polite, it's clear, and it's non-confrontational. This is what the source calls functional English. It achieves the goal, getting your money back, without the emotional cost of a confrontation.
It effectively removes all the stress from a money conversation.
Yeah.
And that flows perfectly into this next big theme the source material covers, which is this idea of the social chameleon.
The social chameleon. This is where we get into the concept of register.
Register. So for the listener who might not be a linguistics nerd, let's break this down. Is this just like Slang versus formal language. Is that it?
It's more than that, much more. Register is the concept of adjusting your language based on who is in the room. It's like the difference between sweatpants and a tuxedo.
Okay.
They both cover your body, right?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't wear them to the same events. Language is the same way. Using the wrong register is like wearing a tuxedo to a gym. It's not just different, it's socially jarring. It makes people uncomfortable.
The source material had this great experiment about recommending a restaurant. I thought this was such a clear example of this whole tuxedo versus sweatpants idea.
Yes. So the context is the same. You are promoting a new restaurant. You want someone to go there. But the source contrasts how you would say it to a close friend versus, say, a business partner.
Okay, so let's role play this a bit. To the friend, the source suggests saying something like, "You've got to check this place out.
Right.
The atmosphere is so relaxed."
You've got to. It's imperative, it's a command, but it's a friendly one. It implies closeness. I can tell you what to do because I know you, I know what you like.
And the word relaxed.
Yeah, relaxed. It implies, hey, we can hang out here. We can be loud. We can be messy. It's casual.
And then the pivot to the business partner. If I said, "Hey, Mr. CEO, you got to check this place out. It's super chill." That just feels so wrong.
It feels risky, right? It could land, but it's a gamble. So the source shifts to, I'd highly recommend this restaurant. The ambiance creates a very inviting atmosphere.
It sounds like a totally different person is speaking.
It does. Highly recommend instead of gotta check out. Ambiance instead of just atmosphere or vibe. Inviting instead of relaxed. Every word is chosen for a specific effect.
But isn't that, I don't know, isn't that a little bit fake?
That's the common pushback. I want to be myself. I want to be authentic. But the source argues that being yourself involves respecting the social contract of the situation. Inviting signals that it's a good place for a meeting. It's quiet enough to talk. The service is professional. Relaxed signals you can slouch and put your elbows on the table. If you tell a client a place is relaxed, they might think it's loud and messy and unprofessional. You aren't being fake. You are translating the value of the restaurant into the language of the listener's needs.
That is a crucial distinction. It's translation, not deception.
Yeah.
You're just speaking their language.
Exactly. Real-world connection requires that chameleon ability. And the source gives another example regarding work collaboration that just hits this nail on the head.
Oh yeah, the shift between "we'd like to discuss potential collaborations" versus "we should totally work together next year."
Totally. That one word, totally, does so much heavy lifting there. It signals intimacy. It signals, hey, we are on the same level. We're peers.
Whereas potential collaborations sounds like something from a legal document.
It signals boundaries, structure, professionalism. It creates a bit of distance, which is often appropriate at the beginning of a business relationship.
So if you're a learner or just anyone trying to improve your communication, you have to be constantly listening for these subtle cues. If a client says, "We should totally do something," are they opening the door to a more casual relationship?
They absolutely are. That is a bid for connection. And if you respond with, yes, I will forward the requisite paperwork regarding our potential future collaboration, you have just slammed that door shut and locked it.
Right. You completely missed the bid.
You missed it. You have to listen to the music of the conversation, not just the lyrics.
That's it. That's a great way to put it. Okay, so moving on to perhaps the hardest part of communication in any language. Telling someone they are wrong. Or, giving negative feedback.
The danger zone.
The danger zone. The source material talks about the sandwich method. Now, I've heard of this. Positive, negative, positive. It's a classic management trope. But does it actually work, or do people just see right through it? Oh, here comes the compliment. I'm about to get fired.
That is the risk. It is a huge risk. If you do it robotically, it feels incredibly manipulative. But the source breaks down why it works when it's done correctly, when it's done with sincerity. The anecdote is about a college professor giving feedback on an essay.
Right. So walk us through the buns and the meat.
Okay, so the top bun. Your argument is strong. That's the positive reinforcement. But it's not just fluff like good job. It's specific. It validates the effort and the thinking behind the work.
And then the meat.
The critique. But the organization needs improvement. Again, direct and specific. It's not, this is a mess. It's the organization.
And then the bottom bun.
The bottom bun, which is the actionable step. Try to structure your points clearly. It gives them a way forward.
Okay, so why is this structure psychologically necessary? Why not just be direct? Just say, fix your organization.
Because of something called the amygdala hijack. When the human brain hears criticism, it interprets it as a threat, almost like a physical attack. The walls go up instantly.
The fight or flight response again.
It's the same system. By starting with your argument is strong, you lower the defenses, you signal, I am on your side, I see the good work you did. Then, when you deliver the critique, the listener is actually open to hearing it because they don't feel personally attacked.
And ending with an actionable step gives them a path forward so they don't just feel hopeless or defensive.
Exactly. So it's about managing the recipient's biological stress response. It's not about being nice, it's about being effective.
Psychological safety is a prerequisite for learning.
100%. You can't learn if you feel threatened.
But what about when it's not a clear power dynamic, like a professor and a student? What if it's just two friends arguing about a movie? Or politics? The source had a great example here about a movie debate.
This is great because it's entirely subjective. There's no right answer. Two friends disagree on a film's pacing. One loves it, one hates it. The phrase used here is, I totally get why you feel that way, but personally...
I totally get why you feel that way.
That is the magic phrase, validation before opposition. You aren't saying you're wrong, you're saying your logic is valid, your experience is real.
And that word personally is doing a lot of work there too, isn't it?
It is. It's huge. It owns the subjectivity. It's not stating the opinion as an objective fact, the movie was slow. It's stating it as a personal experience. Personally, I found it slow.
And that's much harder to argue with.
It's almost impossible to argue with. If I say the movie was boring, you can say no, it wasn't. If I say personally, I felt bored, you can't really tell me I didn't feel bored. You can't invalidate my personal experience.
That is such a subtle but powerful distinction. It keeps the friendship intact while still allowing you to disagree. It de-escalates before the escalation even has a chance to happen.
Exactly. It's about preserving the relationship, which is usually more important than winning an argument about a movie.
For sure. Now, what happens when you are the one who messed up? The source talks about the meeting blunder. You answer the wrong question. You're rambling on about strategy when they just asked for a simple opinion. You see the confused faces in the room.
We've all been there. It's that horrible moment when the room goes quiet, you realize you're on a train going in the complete wrong direction.
The panic protocol again.
The panic protocol returns. But here, the recovery phrase is so simple. Oh, I see what you mean now.
Oh, I see what you mean now.
It's simple, but think about the alternative. The alternative is usually over-apologizing. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm an idiot, I totally misunderstood.
Which just makes it about you and your failure.
And it makes everyone else in the room really uncomfortable. They have to spend the next 30 seconds reassuring you, no, you're not an idiot.
Right. It derails the whole meeting.
It does, but, oh, I see what you mean now, is neutral. It's clean. It acknowledges the pivot. It says, okay, recalibrating, and you just move on. It resets the conversation without lowering your own status.
It signals to the room, okay, I'm back on track.
Correct. And that ability to recover gracefully is actually a huge marker of fluency. Beginners freeze when they make a mistake. They get flustered. Advanced speakers correct and continue, sometimes so smoothly that people barely even notice the error.
That is a great takeaway. Fluency isn't about not making mistakes. It's about how gracefully you recover from them.
Precisely. It's all about the recovery.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. The source connects all of this speaking advice directly to writing. Section 4 of our outline. From speech to text.
The audio-to-text pipeline. I love this concept.
The premise here is that people get writer's block because they try to be too formal, right? They put on a different persona when they type.
Yes. We put on our writing hat, and suddenly we want to sound like a Victorian lawyer. Heretofore, wherefore, kindly be advised. We use all this stilted language.
I am definitely guilty of, per our previous correspondence.
Everyone is. It's a shield. We think it makes us sound more professional, but the source argues that good writing often mimics the structure of natural speech, just, polished a little.
They go back to that grocery store example.
Yes, the receipt error. So verbally, we established the phrase was, can you double check the price?
Right.
And in the email, the source suggests, could you kindly verify the price for me?
It's basically the same sentence.
It's the same skeleton. Can becomes could, slightly softer, a bit more polite. Double check becomes verify, a little more formal. But the core structure, the request plus object, is identical.
That is a huge hack. So if you can tell the story to a friend, you can write the email.
Exactly. If you're ever stuck on an email, just say it out loud first. Record yourself on your phone, explaining the situation to a colleague. Then simply transcribe what you said and polish the vocabulary. The structure, the natural flow, is usually already there in your head. We block ourselves by trying to invent a completely new structure just for the pitch.
That is going to save me so much time. Seriously. Okay, let's talk about telling stories. Because the source material puts a huge emphasis on this. It says, real-life stories are the data compression for learning. But it also breaks down how to tell a good story in English.
The mechanics of storytelling.
And it's not just once upon a time. It's about rhythm, humor, and detail. The source used a story about a coffee shop embarrassment to illustrate this.
This was the caramel macchiato incident. The narrator orders a really fancy, complicated drink almond milk, extra foam, the works.
I feel seen. That is me.
And they hate it. It just tastes terrible. It's way too sweet. The texture is weird.
And the reaction phrase, the punchline was, I guess I'm trying something new today.
That's the humor. It's self-deprecation. And you have to ask, why share this story? Why tell people you ordered a bad drink?
It's relatable.
It's incredibly relatable. It builds connection. It makes the speaker seem human. If you only tell stories where you are the hero and everything goes right, you're boring.
And probably pretty annoying.
And annoying. Vulnerability and humor, I guess I'm trying something new, signals that you don't take yourself too seriously. And that is a highly advanced social skill conveyed through very simple language. It invites the other person to say, oh man, I did that last week with a matcha latte, and now you have a bond.
Then there was the lost wallet story. This was all about pacing.
Right. The narrator says, I couldn't find my wallet, but the source emphasizes the pauses, the little beats. I checked my pocket, nothing. I checked my bag, nothing.
The suspense.
The suspense. It forces the listener to lean in. You're creating tension. And then you add the emotional weight. That was one of the worst days of my life.
That's a heavy phrase.
It is. And it signals to the listener, pay attention, this matters to me. If you just said, I lost my wallet and it was sad, it's flat, it doesn't land, but one of the worst days of my life, that creates an emotional anchor. It gives the listener permission to feel empathy for you.
And finally, in this section, the road trip twist.
The twist, it was supposed to be a quick trip, but we ended up in the middle of nowhere.
It was supposed to be X, but it turned into Y structure.
That is the fundamental structure of almost every engaging anecdote. Expectation versus reality. That's where the story is.
Okay, I buy the theory. Expectation versus reality. But let's apply this. Say I had a really boring weekend. I just did laundry and watched Netflix. How do I turn that into a story using this structure? Or do I just not?
Whoa, you can absolutely turn that into a story. The source suggests aiming for what it calls relatable defeat.
Relatable defeat. I like that.
So your expectation was, I plan to finally organize my entire life this weekend. I was going to clean the garage, do my taxes, learn to bake bread. Your reality. I ended up watching 3 seasons of a reality show I don't even like and folding one single shirt.
Huh. Okay, that works. That's a story.
The twist isn't a car chase. The twist is the spectacular failure of your own willpower. That's what makes it funny and relatable. The source calls this the microtragedy. It's universally understood.
So for our listeners, if you want to be better at conversation, start looking for the twists in your day. Look for it was supposed to be X, but moments.
Exactly. That's where the engagement lives, even in the most mundane day.
Now let's zoom out a bit. The source material didn't just cover these mechanics. It also did a really deep dive into specific modern scenarios, the modern lexicon. We're talking about the vocabulary of the 2020s.
This is so crucial because textbooks usually lag behind reality by about 10 to 20 years. You won't find digital nomad or crypto anxiety in a standard ESL book from 2010.
Let's start with the digital nomad. This is a huge topic right now. What are the key linguistic markers here? What's the vocabulary?
It's a vocabulary of contrast. On one side, you have the Instagram words, freedom, working from cafes, flexibility, location independence.
Right, the highlight reel.
That's the highlight reel. But the source material highlights the shadow vocabulary, isolation, loneliness, no office environment, Zoom fatigue.
And the financial reality, too.
Yes. But let's look at how this plays out in conversation. Imagine a digital nomad trying to explain their life to their parents or their grandparents.
Oh, that's a tough conversation. So you're on a permanent vacation.
Exactly. So the vocabulary becomes defensive. No, Dad, I'm location independent. I have asynchronous workflows. You start using these technical jargony terms to legitimize what from the outside just looks like leisure.
And the source mentioned the guilt, this strange mix of cheaper living versus the guilt for not saving enough.
That's a very specific, very modern emotion. The guilt of enjoying a cheap lifestyle in a developing country while simultaneously worrying about your 401k back home. Being able to articulate that complexity. I love the freedom, but honestly, I feel guilty about my financial instability. That is high-level fluency. It's not just describing a job, it's describing a deep internal lifestyle conflict.
Then there's the social media paradox.
The highlight reel.
Oh, that phrase, don't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. It's everywhere now.
Exactly. The source talks about the pressure of perfection, the feeling of not doing enough, but it also touches on the language of influencer culture, the blur between a genuine recommendation and paid advertising. The phrase that stood out was, "I bought things I didn't need."
It's almost like a confession.
It is. It's a confession. I was influenced. That's a passive verb structure that sort of removes responsibility. I didn't choose to buy it. I was influenced. It's a subtle way of offloading the agency.
And then the language of recovery from that.
Yes, the reaction. Trying to be more mindful, setting limits, doing a digital detox. These are phrases you hear constantly now as people try to claw back their attention span and their wallets.
Sustainable living was another big one.
The shift from hassle to habit. That was the key insight there.
Can you expand on that? What does that mean?
Well, initially, sustainability feels like work. It's a chore. I have to separate my trash into 5 different bins. I have to remember to carry this reusable cup. It's a hassle. But the narrative arc described in the source is moving to where it becomes second nature, a habit.
And the language changes.
The language changes. You start saying things like, I didn't realize how much I was throwing away until I started composting.
Composting is a realization moment.
Yes. And the thrifting or secondhand vocabulary, it's not buying used clothes anymore. It's about finding unique items or vintage pieces. But again, the source points out the conflict, the struggle of cost versus ethics in travel. I want to see the world, but I worry about my carbon footprint.
It seems like a lot of advanced fluencies, just being able to articulate an internal conflict. I want X, but I worry about Y.
That is a brilliant observation. Yes, that's it in a nutshell. Basic English is I am hungry. Advanced English is I am hungry, but I'm trying to save money for my trip, so I will wait until I get home to eat. It's the negotiation of competing desires.
And nothing screams competing desires like cryptocurrency.
Exciting but scary. That was the quote.
That sums it up perfectly.
The key concepts the source breaks down here are volatility, decentralization, and the deep, deep fear of security breaches. The source mentions the story of someone investing in Bitcoin for the first time. It's a vocabulary of high risk and high reward. I had to learn the market. It can go up and down so quickly.
It's almost a gambling lexicon, isn't it? Riding the wave, ho-dailing, which means hold on for dear life.
It is. It's a strange mix of high finance and, internet meme culture. Being able to discuss that without sounding like a technical manual, discussing the fear of losing your digital keys versus the hope of retiring early, that's the sweet spot of fluency on this topic.
And finally, under this modern lexicon section, the source touched on cultural shocks. This is always a goldmine for language learners.
Absolutely, because it's where language and behavior collide. The source mentioned the specific shock of food culture, like a European adapting to huge portion sizes in the US, or an American adapting to afternoon tea in the UK.
And the chatty American in the grocery line.
Strangers talking in line. In the US, it's completely normal. Hey, how about those Knicks? Or can you believe the price of eggs? In many other cultures, that is deeply intrusive and weird.
So if you're learning English in the US, you have to learn small talk as a literal survival skill.
You do. You need a script for the weather, for sports, for complaining about traffic. If you just ignore the person talking to you, you might come across as rude. If you say too much, you're weird. It's a very delicate balance.
And the directness issue.
This ties right back to the feedback section we talked about earlier. The challenge of direct versus indirect feedback in multicultural teams. Being able to say, I'm learning that not everyone on my team is comfortable with very direct feedback, shows a high level of cultural intelligence. It shows you are observing the meta layer of communication.
It's amazing how language and culture are just. They're completely inextricable. You can't learn one without the other.
You really can't. They're two sides of the same coin.
Which brings us to the final major section of our deep dive today, life stages. The source material tracks how language changes from university all the way to retirement.
It's a life cycle of language. Our vocabulary grows and shifts as our priorities do.
Starting with American universities. The source mentioned a student being shocked by how much freedom students have.
The shock of freedom. In many educational systems around the world, the path is very rigid. You take these classes, you pass this test, the teacher tells you what to do. In the US, it's often, here's a syllabus, good luck, see you at the final exam.
Sink or swim.
Exactly, and the trade-off described is intense workload versus social networking. The language you have to learn here is all about management. Manage your time, take initiative, form a study group. If you are a student, you aren't just learning biology, you're learning the vocabulary of self-regulation and project management.
Then we graduate and hit the career changes. We talked about this a bit, but the metaphor the source used was taking the leap.
Taking the leap, it implies faith. It implies jumping into the unknown. And the feeling described, I just couldn't see myself doing it forever.
That is such a relatable phrase.
Right.
I couldn't see myself doing it forever. It's that moment of realization that your current path is a dead end for you personally.
It's the language of an existential crisis, really. It's not, I hate my job. It's, I don't see a future for myself here. That is a much more profound and complex statement.
It is. And then for some, the next stage is starting a family. The source gets very real here.
Sleepless nights, your whole world turning upside down. The language is very dramatic.
Then there's the payoff phrase.
It makes it all worth it. That is the cliche, but it's a cliche because it's a shared human experience. The language of parenting is almost always a language of paradox. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, and it's the best thing I've ever done. You have to be fluent enough to hold those two opposite ideas in your head and in your sentences at the same time.
And finally, health and fitness. The source distinguished between the language of intent and the language of progress.
This is subtle, but really important. The language of intent is all about aspiration. I'm aiming to run a 5K. I'm trying to cut back on sugar. It uses future tense or continuous tense verbs. It's about the effort.
And progress.
The language of progress is about results. I've started to see results. I have more energy now. This shifts to the present tense of reality, and listening for that shift tells you exactly where a person is in their journey. Are they still wishing, or are they actually doing?
Wow. Okay. We have covered a massive amount of ground today, from the sheer panic of a missing presentation to the philosophical debates about cryptocurrency and the paradox of parenting.
It's a journey through the modern human experience, really, all viewed through the lens of language.
So if we have to synthesize this, if we have to boil this all down for the listener who is maybe feeling a bit overwhelmed by all these protocols and phrases, what is the common thread here?
The common thread, I think, is adaptability. Whether you are ordering coffee, buying crypto, or apologizing to a boss, real fluency isn't about having a massive vocabulary of obscure words. It's about being able to adapt your language to the emotional and the social context of that specific moment.
It's about reading the room.
It is. It's about reading the room, 100%. The aha moment for me in this source material is that real fluency is about observation. It's about noticing how your friend pauses before they deliver bad news. It's noticing how your colleague softens a request with, "Could you kindly?" instead of just "do this."
It's treating every single conversation as a data point, as a learning opportunity.
Exactly. Don't just listen to what people say. Listen to how they say it. Why did they choose that specific word? Why did they pause there? Why did they use a joke instead of a direct complaint?
I love that. So here's our final provocative thought for the listener to take away today. We've talked a lot about how our experiences shape our language. Travel, trauma, joy, they give us the stories we tell.
Right. Our life becomes our lexicon.
But does it work the other way around? If we consciously change the way we speak, if we force ourselves to use the panic protocol to sound calm, or if we use the sandwich method to be kinder, does changing the way we speak actually change the way we experience those events?
That is a profound question. Does saying I'm in a bit of panic actually reduce the physiological feeling of panic? I think it might. I think the evidence suggests it does. Language isn't just a description of our reality, it's a construction of it. If you frame a problem as a collaboration instead of a disaster, you physically react differently. Your body chemistry changes.
A construction of reality. I think that's the perfect place to leave it. We encourage you, the listener, to treat your next conversation as a field study. Listen for the twists, listen for the register shifts, and maybe, just maybe, try out one new phrase yourself.
And see what happens.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll see you next time.